Earlier this year, we saw the release of Fallout: The Frontier, what was and continues to be the largest Fallout mod to ever come out for any of the various Fallout games. And although that continues to be the case, in this video what I wanted to do was highlight to all of you some of the other large-scale new game-sized mods currently a work in progress and on their way. So more or less a highlight reel of some of the biggest mods coming to Fallout, specifically looking at both Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 and the incredibly ambitious and quite well progressed projects that are on the horizon. So all of these mods are making a ton of progress and people are not paying nearly enough attention, so I wanted to highlight them yet again for all of you. But before we get into that, are you lazy, a little forgetful, or maybe just literally don't own a calendar? Well, then you're exactly like me and probably forgot Father's Day is a little over a week away now. But don't fret, as me and today's video sponsor Manscaped are going to save you from yet another boring and forgettable Father's Day gift. As Manscaped has a beautiful product that addresses a problem facing nearly all men: ball hair. The Lawnmower 4.0 uses advanced blades and skin-safe technology to give you that level of precision I know many of you literally need. And I mean, the thing is fully waterproof and even has a flashlight. You're missing out if you don't buy this. So if you want to up your game below the waist, or even maybe win your father's affection back this Father's Day, you could click on that link in the description, use code JUICE20, and get a Lawnmower 4.0 for yourself, and even get 20% off and free shipping to give your dad a Father's Day to remember. So looking back at Fallout, one of the first mods I want to talk about is an incredibly ambitious one, and one that has actually been making significant progress and has a ton of stuff done already, and that is SW Open Worlds. I covered this one in the past, but I made my video on this mod right before the release of Cyberpunk 2077, so I feel like a lot of people forgot about it in the ensuing madness of Cyberpunk 2077's release. But in fact, what is going on with this incredibly ambitious mod project is it is attempting to create a full-scale open-world RPG in the Fallout engine, and of course that actually being a Star Wars themed RPG featuring multiple planets, a ton of different creatures, enemies, weapons, etc. And this very much so using the New Vegas engine as a backbone to implement a lot of those RPG features. And it's actually crazy to me this mod isn't getting more attention just due to the sheer amount of content that is out there right now. There are literally hours of footage of this mod being played, and hundreds if not thousands of pictures of some of the various things being created. A proper open world Star Wars RPG, very much so akin to Fallout New Vegas, is something fans and even just myself have wanted for a very long time. This mod's going to follow a familiar Fallout RPG start. You're going to begin as a captive with others, and from there have a blank slate to choose where you want to go. Do you want to follow the light side, dark side, or gray side? You could choose various skills. There's things like crafting, over 10 different planets for you to experience and explore. As of late, we've been seeing a lot of updates around Kashyyyk in particular, some of the work being done on that setting, but you could see a wide range of planets here, many of them being very familiar from other forms of Star Wars media, but you're looking at things ranging from in very urban setting to some of the deserts, and even things like royal palaces being recreated. One of the other cool things that of course is quite iconic in the Star Wars universe is the huge quantity of weapons implemented and unique enemy types or creatures to face off against, including some pretty epic full-scale boss fights with unique mechanics to go along with them. This mod features full-on vehicle fights, and they are incredibly epic. I know though, there's a ton of content ranging from some of these new enemies you can face off, new allies you can fight with, and those new weapons. There's also a lot in the way of RPG elements that we can already see from some of the shared media. A ton of gameplay of just interacting with others, dialogue, some of the starting aspects of the game, deciding what you want to do with your character and some of the choices that will arise. A lot of this being very akin to Fallout New Vegas, as I said before, which is definitely not a bad thing. Fallout New Vegas being one of the best RPGs just ever. And of course, this will feature things like companions and skills also. So as you could hopefully tell by some of these videos, this is an absolutely massive project. And of course, tackling something on the scale of Star Wars with multiple worlds and all these factions and lore is pretty intense, but they've been doing a great job and have a ton completed already. And even just a couple of days ago, literally released new teaser content. This is a very active mod with a ton done already and a ton still being worked on and shared regularly. But a separate project that is also very interesting but at a much younger stage of development is Fallout Revelation Blues. This is a pretty unique one that I bet a lot of you guys haven't heard about, but what these modders are attempting to do is recreate Van Buren in the New Vegas engine. As I'm sure most of you know, Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 are in a very different style than Fallout 3. This as a result of Fallout 1 and 2 being made by Black Isle. It was later bought by Bethesda and we got those 3D Fallouts. Well, though Fallout 1 and 2 were in this top-down style, the original developer with Black Isle was actually working on a Fallout 3 all the way back in 2003. Of course, that never ended up happening or getting released, but quite a bit of work was done on this project. So you could find quite a bit of content and media as to what this game was supposed to be, some of which ended up getting implemented with Fallout 3 or New Vegas itself, but this mod is trying to take that original idea for Van Buren, that distinct story and location, and make it into a full-fledged mod, partly using some of the assets from Fallout 3 and New Vegas because they are the assets kind of from Van Buren originally. So the way this will start off is you're an escaped prisoner and it takes place in Southwest America, so the area is going to be Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and Utah. And one of the rough ideas of the overarching story of Van Buren was that a mad scientist more or less wanted to use a ballistic satellite to purge the filth of the world, and a new plague was released in the area. A lot of bad stuff happening and some challenges for us to face. But it's an interesting perspective lore-wise, as some of the lore does match up completely with what happened in later Fallout games. We could see some familiar faces, and NCR versus Brotherhood of Steel War is a major part of this game, or was supposed to be. The Legion has a presence here, but some other things are distinctive. So this will kind of be a break-off point, not following that same lore as Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and just overall is a really interesting position for a modder. You have quite a bit to work off of based off some of the design documents of Van Buren, but then also a lot that was just unwritten where they can fill in the blanks in their own way. It's a really exciting one. Again, this project's super young. There's not a ton of content out there from it thus far, but it's another good one to keep an eye on. Doesn't really seem like we're getting a Van Buren game at any point in general, so I'm excited to see where this goes. But speaking of those older Fallouts, we also do have a Fallout 4 mod. That with the Fallout 2 Remake mod, which, as you can imagine, is taking that 2D Fallout 2 and turning it into a full 3D game based in Fallout 4's engine. This has always been one of the most exciting projects to me because a lot of Fallout fans know about Fallout 2, they're aware of its existence, but they just can't stomach that style of game or they don't have a ton of interest in it. So for many, it'll be their first opportunity to actually experience the story that set the foundation for some of their favorite games, with Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas, and I guess Fallout 76 for some. Over the past couple of years, a ton of work has been done, from concept art to in-game images of the world space being crafted. This is a bit of a more unique one in that you are converting a 2D landscape to a 3D landscape, so there's some issues with spacing and trying to make everything work together. But then even some of the other stuff like those weapons that were much more pixelated in those older games, but now being full-fledged 3D models you can properly interact with in Fallout 4's engine. I know that with these larger scale mods, I know people get caught up on like, well, it'll never release, or it's going to take so long for it to release, but with stuff like this, Bethesda will probably never do this, or at least not in the next decade, it doesn't seem like. Modders recreating Fallout 2 in a 3D world space with Fallout 4's engine is probably the only hope we have. And even if it does take several more years, that is still an experience I want to have at some point. Then we do have Fallout Appalachia. This one being a pretty interesting twist overall in that what it is doing is recreating the world of Fallout 76, but at the time of Fallout 4. So Fallout 76 takes place during the year 2102 or 2103, depending on the DLC timing, while Fallout 4 takes place in 2287, 185 years after the events of Fallout 76. So what this mod is doing is attempting to recreate and adapt that world space. So the goal here isn't a one-to-one recreation of what was in Fallout 76, but to recreate it and then also age it. It is now almost 200 years older, and it should look different as a result of that. A ton of this world space is created already. We can see stuff like Vault 76, Flatwoods, Helvetia, Vault 51, Arcos Pharma, and a lot more. This is another one that has hours of footage posted online and hundreds of screenshots shared of the progress. Work on this project actually started just a couple of months after the release of Fallout 76. So we're approaching almost 2.5 years of progress already, and it is continuing to get regular updates on their Discord. There's also some functional implementations here, some raiders in the region, as well as making the Fallout 76 workshops into Fallout 4 settlements. And just overall, I think it's a really cool and unique one. Fallout Fallout 76 is kind of this weird Fallout game in the grand scheme of the series and very polarizing for a lot of fans. And it seems like this is definitely a good bridge to give you some of the best parts of Fallout 76. I think the world space of that game is the best in the series, in that more traditional Fallout setting like we have with Fallout 4. Then we also do have Fallout London, this being another very unique project in that it is taking us across the Atlantic. The first Fallout experience that will take us outside of the US, which is pretty ingrown to the Fallout franchise overall. And they are very much so leaning on that unique setting in a variety of ways. This game will take place in the year 2237, 50 years before the events of Fallout 4. Further, you can see quite distinctive and unique architecture, this being appropriate for London overall, but just very different from what we've found in basically all of the Fallout games thus far. There's also plans for some unique mechanics around this, a heavier use on melee weapons to represent the laws found in London, of course custom creatures not seen in other world spaces or in past Fallout games, totally new and unique factions, and of course you would be amiss if you didn't have a ghoulified queen. The world space overall is targeted to be around the size of Fallout 4's Commonwealth, so almost a full-on proper new Fallout game here. And based off some of the images shared thus far, you can see that real distinct architecture and even just some of the iconic landmarks around London and Europe in general. And as of late 2020, a world space the size of Far Harbor was already complete with this mod, so that being now at least over 6 months ago, you can imagine a lot more has been done in the interim. There's a lot of unique opportunities that present themselves with this location because it's just not really touched by the Fallout lore. There's a few things here or there, but it's kind of a blank slate in the Fallout universe. And although this mod has a literal mountain of work in progress screenshots showing off all kinds of different things and regularly getting updated, some of these are from the month of June. One of the pretty cool things about this is they've also been releasing a ton of standalone mods, mostly in the form of weapons and armors that are of course fitting that Fallout London theme. And although the Fallout 3 Remake mod probably has the single most standalone weapon or item releases for Fallout 4, this is definitely a pretty close second with a ton of content being out there for you to download right now. Now with that said, I would be amiss if I didn't at least mention the two large-scale remake mods coming to Fallout 4, that with Fallout 4 the Capital Wasteland project remaking all of Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 New Vegas remaking all of Fallout New Vegas. But I really just wanted this video to be focused on a lot of mods that maybe you don't follow as closely, while these ones tend to get way more coverage, especially for my channel. In particular, I just made a video of playing the recreated Point Lookout DLC that is absolutely epic. You could clink of the eye if you want to check that one out. Otherwise, a big thank you again to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Sponsors like this really help keep the channel going. And with that said, if you liked any of the mods I showcased in this video, I have links down below to everything, their Discords, their YouTubes, Twitters, etc., so you can stay up to date with their progress. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.